Hey guys, it's Dan, your host here, Dan's Reviews, and today I'm back for another video for the Walking Dead universe, and in today's video we're going to be talking about all three new Walking Dead shows, Dead City, Daryl Dixon, and The Ones Who Live, and we're going to discuss, do we think that the timeline for the Walking Dead universe is kind of a disaster? Alright guys, this one's going to be doing a review today, this one's going to be doing a review for the Walking Dead universe, and in today's video we're going to be doing a discussion video. This one's going to be on the Walking Dead franchise in general. We're going to discuss the timeline of all the shows that are currently going on right now, and why we feel like the timeline is a mess. So, this is definitely a bit of a hot topic type of video. This one's definitely a bit of a kind of out there video, but the reason I decided to do this one is because we're of course approaching Ones Who Live. Obviously, Ones Who Live is getting very close, very exciting. Obviously, we're getting the return of Rick and Michonne, which is going to be really exciting to see. We also have Daryl Dixon with France, of course, that's coming back for Season 2 this year at some point. And we also have Dead City, which I know is going to be starting filming next month, obviously, Dead City Season 2, and stuff like that. Now, with the timelines, it's pretty interesting, because The Walking Dead Ones Who Live is going to be starting off, from what I'm assuming at least, it's going to be starting off after the events of 9/05, of the original Walking Dead, when Rick got taken away in the helicopter, right? And here's the thing with that, is that there are multiple years that Rick was gone. We had a 6-year time jump, obviously, in the original series, so he's been gone for at least 6 years. Then we've skipped multiple months throughout seasons 9 through 11. And we skipped a year, keep in mind. And I heard somebody say that, you know, if we're going by the timeline of, I think it is, like, you know, Dead City or something, that Rick has been gone for 11 years, which is pretty insane. Honestly, yeah, that's pretty insane. And I think, overall speaking, I think Rick has been gone, like, way longer than he's been with the group, you know? Because I'm pretty sure he's only been with the group for, like, 3 years, you know? Whereas with CRM, he's been there for, like, at least 10 years, probably more. So, we have a lot of catching up to do in the timeline. So that's why I say, timeline-wise, Ones Who Live is definitely going to be the most interesting, because I feel like a lot of that pilot episode is going to be catching us up to current day. Now, you may ask, what is current day, right? What is the current day of Ones Who Live, right? Is it going to be around the time that Daryl Dixon takes place in France, or is it going to be during the time that Dead City takes place in New York, right? So, here's at least what I think is going to be happening. I doubt that Michonne's going to be looking for him for that long, to where it's going to be multiple years of Michonne looking for him, which would line up to the Dead City timeline. So if you ask me, at least, I think it's going to line up to somewhere after the main show is done, and somewhere around the timeline of Daryl in France. That's what I think. I think that Ones Who Live, at least the current day timeline, that will be continuing on with episodes like probably 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, it'll probably be around the time of Daryl Dixon, which Daryl Dixon, from what I heard from people saying, it is a month or two after the events of 11/24, after the year time skip, right? So Daryl Dixon is not that much longer after the original series ended. Dead City, on the other hand, especially if you look at Herschel, it's been a few years, you know. So, a lot of people argue how long it's been. It's been, you know, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. You know, people argue that all the time. I honestly can't even tell what it is. I'm under the assumption that it's been at least 5 years based off the look of Herschel, but some people argue that. Some people don't agree with that opinion, so I'm not even gonna go there, you know. Dead City skipped a few years, let's put it that way. So, and it doesn't really matter on technicalities, because, you know, nothing is lined up anyway, so, you know, it really doesn't matter. But point being is that I think the Ones Who Live will line up to where the Daryl Dixon timeline is at. The reason why I say that is because I do think that Rick and Daryl will have a reunion of some kind. Whether it's at the end of the Ones Who Live, and that's why Norman Reedus was on set, or it's going to be in the Daryl Dixon show in Season 3. Which is something I could see them doing. Either way, I think Rick and Daryl will be back together again and leading some kind of Walking Dead product. Whether it's the Daryl Dixon show, whether it's the Ones Who Live Season 2 magically appears, or it's another show completely unrelated and they find each other in that. You know, it doesn't matter. Point being is that I do think there will be a reunion, and I do think there'll be a connection there. Problem is with the timeline, and this is when I say that the timeline is a mess, because if Daryl is already going to be going back to the United States at some point, which I do think is going to be around the end of Daryl season 2, maybe some point in season 3, Daryl will be back in the United States. I do think that will happen. And I do think at that point that Ones Who Live will be caught up enough to the timeline to where Daryl will be able to have a reunion with Rick. I think that's why they're lining that up that way. Now, you also have to remember in the 5th episode of Daryl Dixon, we had a line from Carol saying somebody came back. So is Rick already back and Daryl will have to meet him somewhere else, you know? That's a good question. You know, hopefully Ones Who Live will actually answer that if that is Rick that she was talking about, or if it's somebody else. You know, either Ones Who Live will answer that or Daryl Dixon will answer that, you know. So, a lot of things are very connected. Obviously, it's very obvious. Daryl Dixon, Ones Who Live, they feel very close together when it comes to, you know, reunions, and it feels like timeline-wise, they're going to be lining up and stuff like that. So, timeline-wise, I feel like a lot of it is very similar. Then, you have Dead City, which is just years ahead for some reason. So, I don't know how they're going to line this up, but somebody did point out is that CRM does have a facility in New York, right? Because the kids in World Beyond mentioned that their dad is somewhere in New York, which I don't know if anybody can answer my question on this, but what the fuck happened to that? Because Leo Bennett was not in New York. He was in some random college in season 2. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. I don't know what happened with that plot. You know, the World Beyond writing is kind of shit and asinine anyway, but, you know, there you go. Point being, apparently CRM has some kind of facility in New York, or did they just scrap that because World Beyond's so garbage that they didn't even, you know, remember it? Who knows? But, you know, regardless, they did acknowledge it, so they have to, they do have to, you know, bring that back up at one point. So, you know, with Dead City, are they going to have any CRM connections here, you know? Are they going to merge the Barazi stuff with the CRM stuff at one point? Is this show going to connect to something, you know? And here's the thing. It's not just about, oh, connection, this and that. We also have to line up the timelines, right? So is Rick going to get back to Alexandria and just chill for a few years and then line up to the Dead City timeline and then we fight the CRM together? No. Or is, you know, CRM going to, you know, go into Dead City at some point and things have already happened by Dead City's timeline that, you know, haven't happened at one time? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's a fucking disaster. It's an absolute disaster. I hope that they make it make sense, is the best way I'll put it. I hope that things line up well, because with Daryl Dixon in France and Ones Who Live, I definitely feel a connection being set up, you know, for a crossover of some kind. Dead City feels like a completely separate thing on its own, you know? And again, it's no jab at Dead City. I really like it. It's just, you know, timeline-wise, it doesn't make any fucking sense. So, I don't know. So, in my opinion, here's what I'll say about it, is that I think that they are definitely going to have to figure this out at some point. I don't know if maybe Rick and Daryl are going to be doing certain things for a few years, and then they meet up with Maggie and Negan at another point. But either way, we're at a war with the CRM. And the second that Rick and Michonne break out of the CRM and shit like that, the war is on. You know, it's not exactly going to be, you know, that much longer before shit starts popping off. So I guess really the big question I'm trying to say here is that, is this going to make sense at one point? Yes. When is it going to make sense? When are all the timelines going to meet up? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know how this all works. I don't know how this all lines up. All I know is that it's a very big possibility that Daryl runs into Rick either at the end of Ones Who Live, and that's why Norman was there, or it'll be in Daryl Dixon at one point or another when he makes it back to the States. That reunion, I do think, will line up. The timelines are easy enough to connect because we're going to be skipping some years with Rick. We're going to be lining up the timelines. I definitely think that'll be possible. My biggest question is, how is Dead City going to connect when it's a few years away from Ones Who Live, you know, and Daryl Dixon? So what has happened in that time? Is Negan and Maggie just not involved with anything going on? Would make no sense given how CRM has a facility apparently in New York, right? So are we going to learn about that at one point? Is that going to be something we find out? I don't know, but it's really confusing. But there is the Walking Dead timeline for you. It's fucking everywhere right now. So we'll have to see where they go with it. I'm going to remain positive on it. Hopefully things will line up well. Hopefully things will go well. It's definitely a bit confusing. It's definitely a little bit much, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that, you know, it all kind of connects and it, you know, magically kind of works itself out. So anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. Of course, if you're new to the channel and you enjoy videos like this, make sure to click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the videos of the Walking Dead universe. Make sure to follow me on Dan's The Walking Dead Reviews on Instagram, guys. And of course, I'll see you guys very soon for more videos of the Walking Dead franchise. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys, and peace out.